Hey friends, it's Matt. Welcome to another Tank Talk. We're glad that you're watching and that you found us. Hey, by this point in your schooling, you've learned about the different measuring systems, right? In Europe, the standard measuring system is called the metric system. So there, people use things like grams and meters and liters to measure the distance and the weight and more of things. But in the United States, we measure distance or height with inches and feet and miles. And we use things like teaspoons and tablespoons and ounces for other measurements. Now, while we may have different standards for measuring things like how much flour we should put in the cake that we're making or how far it is to our best friend's house, there's one standard of measurement that all people use, whether we realize it or not. It's comparison. You've heard that word before, right? Yeah, comparison. It's simply when we measure something about ourselves against something about someone else. We take this about ourselves and we measure it against that about someone else. You think that this pair of sneakers that you have is awesome until you see that pair of sneakers that a kid in your class has. You think this grade you got on your paper is pretty good until you hear about that grade that your best friend got. You think this guy you're dating is pretty cute until you see that guy that your best friend is dating. See what I mean? Comparison is the way we measure this in our lives against that in someone else's life. And it affects more of your lives than I think you probably even realize. When I was growing up, I looked at my this and I wanted others that. I was short and I wanted to be tall. I had glasses and braces and I wanted nothing on my face. I had no idea how to be normal around girls and I wanted a girlfriend. And when I compared myself to everyone around me, I started to believe that their lives were better than mine. And then I started to believe that my life didn't even matter. Maybe it was that God left Daryl, the angel with brain damage, in charge to assemble me while he took a break. And it took a lot of people and a lot of experiences to help me heal through that pain. Here's the thing about comparison. It can lead us to believe things that just aren't true. Things about ourselves and others. And when we compare ourselves to others, it does damage. Because they may have so many followers on Instagram or likes on TikTok or made a game-winning shot or never lose a battle royale, or they got to take the girl to the school dance, or they have more friends than we can ever dream of having, their lives seem pretty much perfect. They have everything that they could ever want, everything that we want even, and because of that, we assume that their lives are amazing. And even though we may know that that's not true, because everybody's life is not perfect, the comparison still leaves us feeling like our this will never measure up to their that. And when that happens, well, for some of us, the comparison leads to disappointment. We're disappointed that we don't have what they have. We wonder why they got to have a cool new house or a starting spot on the team or the happy family, and we think, why not me? And the more we compare, the more disappointed we are of what's in front of us. Others of us get frustrated. Simply put, we don't think it's fair. Don't we deserve to have cool stuff or be in a big friend group or be a part of a school play? The fact that someone else has what we want, what we think we deserve, well, it just doesn't feel fair, and that makes us mad. Maybe for you, the feeling of comparison brings into your life is hopelessness. Not only do you see something in someone else's life that you want, but you feel like you're never gonna have it. And no matter what you do or how hard you'll try, you'll never be able to get where they are or have what they have. And that makes you feel hopeless. Or maybe comparison motivates you. Instead of giving up, you decide to try harder and push faster, do whatever you have to do to get where they are. And while motivation and hard work aren't bad things, they can be pretty unhealthy when comparison is the reason behind them. And I don't want to ignore those of you that might land on the other side of the comparison game too. Maybe when you compare yourself to others, you actually feel really good about yourself. You might even think that you're better than someone else, that you're more deserving of what you have than they are anyway. You might look down on others because you feel like your beard, did I say beard? I meant life, looks pretty good in comparison. Regardless of how comparison makes you feel about yourself or others, here's the thing that's true. It never really takes you anywhere. Because as soon as you reach the thing that you want, as soon as you go from your this to their that, you find something else to compare. It's never enough. The cycle never ends, and you end up struggling with those same feelings of disappointment and frustration and hopelessness and more all over again. And I don't know about you, but I'm sure that there has to be a better way. Luckily for us, there actually is a better way. A way that doesn't leave us stuck in this cycle of comparison. And it can be found in the Bible. The passage that we're going to look at today was written by a guy named Paul. Now, Paul was a leader in the spread of the Christian faith, and he often wrote letters to encourage believers in churches in different areas. In the letter we're looking at today, Paul addresses issues born out of a comparison to a group of church members in a city called Corinth. And here's what he said. Oh, don't worry, we wouldn't dare say that we are as wonderful as these other men who tell you how important they are. but they are only comparing themselves to each other, using themselves as the standard of measurement. How ignorant. Even though Paul was specifically talking about some false teachers who were bragging about their spirituality, the same truth applies to us today. Basically, Paul is saying to his friends, listen, comparing yourself to other people stinks. It's not smart. It's not wise. It's not helpful. So just let's not do it, okay? Why? Well, because I think what Paul wanted us to know is that when we compare ourselves to each other, we're using the wrong measurement. When we hold our real life up to someone else's life on social media or gamer accomplishments, or when we compare the way our family looks to the way another person's family looks, when we look at what we have in comparison to what someone else has, well, we'll always end up on the losing end. And that's because we're looking in the wrong place. And I know this is true not only because of the way comparison makes us feel, but because of something else Paul said in the very same letter. Take a look. When people commend or compliment and praise themselves, it doesn't count for much. The important thing is for the Lord to commend them. You see, it's not about how we measure up in comparison to other people. It's not about how our this stands in comparison to their that. As Paul said, that doesn't count for much. But what does count is this, how God sees us. This is our standard, the place we can look to see how we measure up. And the good news is this, that God doesn't compare you to others. How do we know? Because of Jesus. A lot of things can be explained because of Jesus. We can look at the way Jesus treated people while he was here on earth as proof of how God sees us today. Jesus didn't rank people around him from best to worst. He didn't compare one single person to his own perfection. Instead, he turned the whole system upside down and based his way of seeing people on the only thing that matters, God's love. See, God isn't using the people around you as some sort of measuring stick to determine your worth or your value. Instead, he's simply looking at you through his eyes, seeing your life through his love, and that's a place that you will always measure up. So since this is true, since God doesn't compare you to others, then what can we do to stop comparing ourselves? There's just one more truth that I want to share with you that I think can help. It's from wisdom from a book called Proverbs, and it will give us an idea of where to start. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." Comparison starts in our hearts. It starts because something in us feels unhappy with this in our lives when we see it compared to that in someone else's. So if we want to avoid that feeling, we have to stop it where it starts, in our hearts. As Proverbs says, we have to guard our hearts. And here are some ways that you can guard your heart. First, pay attention to how you're feeling. Notice the way your mood or your outlook changes when you start to compare yourself to someone else. Do you feel disappointed, frustrated, angry, anxious? Those feelings may be clues that you're heading down a path of comparison, and they're a signal to you that you need to start guarding your heart. Second, find out what's fueling it. What are you looking at, thinking about? What are you doing when you start to feel these things? What's fueling your negative feelings of comparison? Is it a post on social media? Is it a TV show that you're watching? A circumstance in your life that you wish was different? If it's something you control, then take a step away from it. Close the app, turn off the TV, take a break from that friend group for a day, and just take a step back and guard your heart from the things that cause you to compare. And if it's something that you can't control, talk to someone about it. Maybe you're unhappy with something about your home life, or you have a friend you're jealous of, or you wish you'd gotten to the top spot on your team and you just didn't. Things like that can cause you to compare. Believe it or not, your parents can be great people to help you identify steps that you can take to change and guard your heart in those areas. I know you think they're weird and clueless, but really they're not. And third, celebrate what you do have. Instead of filling your heart with comparison, fill it with the acknowledgement of the things that you do have. The things that you're thankful for, the things that you like about yourself and your life. Again, the way God sees you is the best place to start. So make a list of the ways that he sees you, or send an encouraging text to someone you appreciate, or write down all the things that you're grateful for in your own life. When you're tempted to compare, fill that space in your heart with gratitude. Fill it with something that reminds you of the truth that God doesn't compare you to others. So if you're sitting there thinking that you're the only one struggling with comparing yourself to others, it's not true. I still struggle with it. Every single one of us struggles with comparison in different areas of our lives in some way. The good thing is that we don't have to struggle alone. Find someone in your life that you can learn from on how to stop playing the comparison game and grow. Find someone in your life that will tell you the truth about who you are, that God made you and loves you, and yeah, you're not perfect, but neither is anyone else. And your imperfections don't devalue you, they make you human. And God has a plan for humans to find joy and peace. So try to stop comparing yourself to others because God isn't doing that. And that's huge. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.